Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show that discusses any and all topics under the sun that are of interest to women worldwide. Here's Nadia Jordana.
Hello, hello. I'm Nadia Jordana, and this is It's a Woman's World. We have a special guest today. She is Dorina Lantella Martirano. She's an Italian cook and chef, and she has some interesting things to talk with us about, a special life philosophy that spills over into her live cooking show. I could go on, but let's go meet the co-hosts and talk to Dorina. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you, Nadia. What a great day, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with Dorina and with all of you incredibly powerful women.
Absolutely, I agree. And Amalia, Moreno-Damgaard.
Hi, Nadia. It's great to be here. It's nice and warm in the Twin Cities. I am outside, as you can see.
Hot one today for that.
Record temperatures, for sure.
And McKenna, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this show. It sounds like we're going to be learning quite a little bit as well as having fun. So thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Candy Pettiford, you know how much I love having you on the show.
Oh, you know I love being here, Nadia. This is going to be a great time, and thanks for asking me to be on.
Great. And Dorina, where do we start? You have so many exciting things to talk with us today about. You're an Italian cook and chef, a mama of 6, and you have some fascinating, fabulous philosophy. Let's start with your philosophy about family, kitchen, getting back to the table.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is just really exciting to be actually in a different city where I'm usually here on the East Coast. So I'm gonna hit the Midwest here a little bit, so this is exciting. So I teach people how to cook. And this is something that has evolved. I actually did my first cooking class when I was 19 in college. I was the neighborhood Italian kid who grew up in the restaurant. And one of my, friends I had gone to school with, here she was in college, and she said, teach us how to cook. And that was the first cooking class that I ever did. It took like all day, and I taught just how to make the pasta sauces, but I'd never done it before, and we had a great time. And so over the years, I kind of always did that, but it was kind of always in the background. I grew up in the restaurant business. I have always done things on the side, but my first number one job that I had to finish before I could now move into this next realm of my life was my 6 kids. I am mom first. And I think that it's the most important job in the world. And a lot of people don't take it seriously enough and don't give it the respect that it needs to have. When I'm in Italy, the women there, the moms, that is an important job. Absolutely. And it's respected. We've all heard the term, you're just a mom. But I looked up, I decided to change that meaning. I looked up the word one time, the definition of just, and did you know that the adverb definition of it is exactly what is needed? Mom. So I think we need a mom to save the world. So here I am.
Well, maybe it goes with that old adage, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody
happy. Exactly. So true. So anyway, over the years, the teaching actually kind of got, it got a new purpose. And all of a sudden I realized that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Not just teaching people how to cook because it's cheaper, because it's healthier, because it's tastier, but because it is what brings us to the table. And the table, I believe, is the bottom building block of society. We've got the home, and then, we've got our towns and our cities and our counties and our states. But really, when you get back down, it's the home. And what is the core of the home? The table. And when we come together and we face each other, that is when problems are solved and things are resolved and everything is just better. People are happier. So my mission is to get people back to the table. So I've started my own little back to the table movement. And I want to revive something, which I'm going to share with you. And it's called the Roseto effect. Any of you ever heard of that before?
Oh,
No? Well, my family comes from Roseto Valfortore, Italy. It's a little teeny peasant village in Puglia, in the heel of the boot of Italy. Little town up in the mountains. Back in the day, my dad tells me that, you know, there was 6,000 or 7,000 population of the town. It's now about 1,000. But anyway, the first immigrants from that town that came here to the United States landed in eastern Pennsylvania, working the slate mines. And they were kind of pushed aside, we'll say, to say it nicely. So they, instead of being in this town that they were in Bangor, Pennsylvania, they moved off to the side then and started their own little town. They named it Roseto after their town in Italy. So they were happy and doing their little thing there, working and building their little town. Fast forward to the 50s and 60s, there was a Dr. Benjamin Falcone who was of the town, and he was the doctor that served the town. And he told this colleague that he had met, a Dr. Stuart Wolf, who was, I guess, more of a researcher or whatever. But anyway, he tells him that there's no heart disease in this town. Up to like a certain age, it was way more higher than the rest of the country. And they also were lacking in a lot of other ailments. So they go and study the town because, you know, when people are healthy, what's the first thing you think of? Food. So right away they go study what they're eating, and they're like, well, they're eating salted cured meats. They're eating food fried in lard because olive oil wasn't being imported yet. They were drinking a lot of wine. They were smoking, and they were happy and healthy.
So
Like,
it wasn't so much the food.
no, of course they ate, you know, they had their gardens. They had, like typical Italians, they had their gardens with their tomatoes in the backyard and all their other vegetables, but it wasn't enough to say it was the diet. So they started digging deeper, and they literally interviewed the whole town. And it was a many years of a study that they did. And what they ultimately attributed it to was the community-centered, church-centered, family-centered life. I call it life around the table, not necessarily what you're eating, but how you're eating together. It was really, really the community. They said the people nourished each other. And isn't that what we're all here to do?
And who you're eating with, sure.
You know, so whether it's whoever you share your house with, whoever you're having a meal at the same time, do it together. You know,
And
it's
so the Roseto effect got some publicity too, didn't it?
absolutely. So that, as you say, so they dubbed this whole phenomenon the Roseto effect. And it was actually, well, it back in the 60s, there were articles and documentaries and all kind of stuff. Gosh, it's got to be 15 years ago. I don't remember when it came out, but the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, the introduction is about Roseto, Pennsylvania. 3 years ago, I was in Italy, or I guess it's 4 years ago now, 20 seems to have disappeared. Back in 2017, and sent me a text message with, I'm going to share it with you. The New Jersey Star Ledger still had a big thing with the Roseto effect as the title. This article, the writer was not from Roseto. He was not going to Roseto, but he was going to his hometown in Italy to find his Roseto effect. So you see, it still has value and meaning because people are actually seeking this out, this lifestyle. So, you know, I've gotten more into the teaching people how to cook in recent years, and due to the pandemic, I started doing it online. I said, well, I can't do them in person, and I can't do the other thing I do, which is my favorite thing in the world, is I take people on culinary trips to Italy, or at least that's how it started. I now call them culinary and heritage and learn how to live trips, because I take people to the original Roseto and show them this is what it's all about. You know, this is where it started, and this is what we want. I want to revive the Roseto effect. I want to get people back to the table.
Barbara, as a traveling photojournalist, I could see you doing a story on that.
I was just gonna say, sign me up. You know, Dorina, I lived in Europe for 20 years and was at the time married to an Englishman, and his great grandfather came from northern Italy, Laerna, near well, it's Lake Como area. So we've been there a few times, and full confession, my favorite food, hands down, is Italian. More so than American food, more so than any other food. I love Italian. And the interesting thing is my husband likes the red sauces and I like the white sauces. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that or what the difference is.
Well, he likes
I
hanging
love
out with the
tomatoes, but
he would rather hang out down south with us where the red sauces are, and you want up north where the more white and cream sauces, you know.
Oh, hey, I want to bust in here for just a second. We have a video clip. Dorina also does live cooking lessons. We decided to do something a little different than normal. Instead of the average cooking segment that you might be expecting to see, we're going to show you a blooper reel of the kind of things that happen on live video that you can't clip out later, except for when you want to put it on YouTube. Here,
Yeah.
let's get that going for you. I'll only take a second.
well, while Nadia's looking for the link, I'm curious, is your kitchen the largest room in your home?
Well, kind of. Now, it used to be. We just moved here, so I actually finally have a bigger kitchen. But you know what? My grandmother had a galley kitchen. You could barely squeeze behind when she was standing at the stove. But you know what? The stuff that she came out of that kitchen with, it doesn't really matter the what. You know, food is love. And, you know, my kids will ask me when they come home to visit, you know, can I make them this and can I make them that? And I tell them, I'm like, well, you can make it. And they're like, no, Mom, it tastes better when you make it. You make it with love. And, you know, so it's more about the love in the kitchen than the size of the kitchen.
Perfect.
I
Perfect.
have something to say to while Nadia is looking. Is I'm sitting here and really excited about your holistic approach to this. I love that you're telling us it's not about food. It's not just about food, but people healing people. And I think that's a message that I would encourage you to carry across, is that message of the holistic approach of what you do, is that it's not just about the food, but it's about the people together. So I love that.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Here we go. I have the clip ready for you.
And this is why this is so nice. Oh, ta-da! Sorry, I'm a dork. So I was getting ready to make lunch now because my show's over, and I found this little pot on my stove. I'm like, crap, I forgot to put the liquor mixture and moisten my inner cake. So I got 5. Oops. There go the Crocs sticking on the floor. You just only fill it like to here, and then you're gonna twist it up because you don't want it eking out the top. Okay, so right now it looks like that. It's like not, but I'm just, whoops. Told you not to let the ends go. You can see how much crust is still at the side. So it's a nice thin, it's really, well, that's what I get for trying to be good on TV. Woo! Wow, that's a strong, that's a strong, really strong ammonia smell. Do not open this up and put it right up to your face. I really had no idea, because anytime I've used it in Italy, I wasn't up close. I'm gonna go ahead and put just a little lemon juice, not too much. I don't want it to be lemony, but I want a little lemon to give it
I think I did it the wrong way. Lemon in my eye. There we go, just a little bit. There. Anyway.
That was so
Oh,
fun.
How fun.
Hilarious.
that's
Fun.
hilarious.
Now I'm definitely gonna look up your show.
Nothing like live.
So
11
Dorina,
usually,
Yes.
isn't it?
Dorina, I think it's great what you're trying to do here. I'm curious as to how you are approaching the people eat together in America, whereas the reality is another one. Very, very few families eat together anymore. So I'm curious as to what approach you used to bring them together.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a quick story as to how and why I'm doing this and what I believe it will ultimately do and how we can make it happen. So like 25 years ago, I was down in the DC area and I was chairing an Italian festival. And there was an old Italian priest I was working with who was also my co-chair. And Father Carmen said to me why it was so important to keep this festival going. He said, because, he goes, first you have your heritage. Now I've added on to this because he told me very simply these points, but first you have your heritage because everybody's from someplace, everybody's somebody from somewhere. We're all, look at us here. We're all from someplace different. He said, people more in touch with their heritage tend to be more in touch with their faith because oftentimes they're intertwined. I'm Italian, so most likely I'm Catholic. People more in touch with their heritage, their faith, tend to be more in touch with their families because you have the values and the traditions of your heritage and your faith that bond your families. And then people more in touch with their families tend to be better individuals. But like you're saying, what do we have in this country? We have no heritage, no faith, no families, just a lot of lonely individuals. And I believe loneliness is kryptonite. So when we come together at the table, we're not lonely anymore. But how do we get people to the table? Well, my very simplistic answer is teach people how to cook, because people really don't know how to cook anymore. They'll get those boxes that come in the mail with the stuff that's, you're assembling, but it's not really cooking it and it's not really putting the love into it, So if you teach people how to cook, it's this new thing for them. One, you can make it fun, you make it creative, you can show how many ways that you can save money, you can make things taste better, you can save time actually by doing it yourself. And it's just so much healthier. And so when you throw those ideas at people, they're like, well, that's a good idea. I can save on this and I can, but in the meantime, they start cooking. And the thing is, we lost kind of some generations, I believe, of teachers, because the original teachers of cooking was your grandmother, your mother, your sister, older sister, your aunt. And because our society has sent women back to work full-time all the time, because we don't live in multiple generational homes anymore. Like in Roseto, Pennsylvania, one of the things was most of the homes were like 3 generations living under one roof, and so mom would go to work, grandma would help with the kids, everybody worked together, but you had people that loved those kids that helped raise them, so you're still getting the family values. So people learning to cook, and I think in recent years, as well as now because of the pandemic, people have started to try to want to cook. I can't tell you how many people watch me and message me like, oh, how do you do this? This is great, and they're trying. And so if we teach them how to cook, they're going to bring their family to the table, because when I make dinner, I want to see the faces at the table eating what I just made. I just put some effort into that. So now I've got the family at the table. Now, if I'm cooking, most likely, most of the time, I'm cooking Italian. So now I've got heritage and family at the table. And even though I can't always get my 6 kids to go to church, I can get them to say grace and give thanks at the table. So now I've got heritage, faith, and family at my table. And then I always kind of say, my fun part is, make a little dessert, because dinner gets them to the table, but dessert keeps them there a little longer. So have some good conversation. So I teach a lot of Italian style desserts, which really aren't sickeningly sweet. So that's a plus, because then you're not kind of going into diabetic shock every time you have a piece of cake, So all my cakes have a lot less sugar in them than most. So this is the kind of stuff that I try to share.
Hey, Candy, you grew up with 9 siblings.
Wow.
13. I'm number 9.
Oh, you're number 9. I
I'm
knew there was
number
9.
9. Yes.
What was your dinner table like?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was fun. There were some times that I didn't want something, And I always had a brother, his name was David. He always, give it to me, give it to me. Yeah. And I'd give it to him or whatever, slip it to him or whatever. But what I wanted to ask you, Dorina, was they've got this new SETI out, which I was raised on a farm, and I ate tomatoes all the time. They've got a new study out now saying tomatoes are not good for you. What is this?
You know what I think? Everything is good for you and everything's not good for you. You know, I think it's everything in moderation.
There you go.
That health, you know, really is about, I mean, sure, some people, because I think tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, which are all like Italian vegetables, so to speak, they say are nightshades and they are necessarily good for your joints or whatever. But again, I think that if you overdo it, like if I had tomato sauce every single day, which I don't, or something, you know, then it's a different story because I've got 2 bad knees. So, I mean, you know, I'm looking for things always to feel better. But I find that when I eat my food of my heritage, physically feel best. And this is just my own little personal thought. I don't know if it's scientific. I swear, if you think about it, we've all been in this country just a short time, but our heritages our families came from for hundreds and probably thousands of years before we came here. And I think genetically, I personally think that we are kind of more accustomed to eating of our own area. So like the Mediterranean diet is totally for me. It may not be for somebody from Asia or Africa, you know, because they're different. Right. And I think that I just feel best when I'm eating Italian food or Italian style food, and I feel doubly better when I'm eating it in Italy. But then who doesn't want to eat good food in Italy? You know? But I do think that everything, eating seasonally, like when you start getting into it and you start paying attention to the things that our grandparents would have taught us, which mine actually did, you know, we ate seasonally. So when did we have tomatoes? Fresh tomatoes were in the summertime. You know, and we would have some jarred ones, of course, you know, that we canned ourselves, you know. Broccoli rabe. You ever had broccoli rabe? It's a bitter green.
I know it's broccoli.
It's not broccoli. Broccoli rabe is a bitter green. It's often in this country, like we used to pick it out in people's cornfields. With my little Italian grandmother would be walking out into people's cornfields in the early spring because it basically grew like a weed. And these are the kind of things that I grew up with. And it's just sharing it. You bring in your culture and your foods to your, you know, we eat it in the season, you know? So this is just stuff I love sharing with people. And then when you just make something fun, like you make a limoncello cake, you know, everybody's like, I want to make that, you know? So it's not hard. You do the healthy things and then real quick you throw in a cake, you know, and everybody's happy.
So Dorina, what is your kitchen and cooking philosophy, and who is your captive audience?
Who's my captive audience? I really have a very mixed group of followers. I have men and women. I mean, it is more women, but I have some great guys that follow my stuff. They just drool over the food. You can see it. And some great guys who cook, you know. I've got some college kids. I've got, you know, moms and grandmothers. I mean, it's the only thing we got to do in life. The only thing we have to do in life to survive is eat. So why not do it right? Eat well and do it with people that you love, you know? It's a whole different thing. You know, when you're sitting across the table from a who's looking a little, I'll say droopy, and you say, hey, what's the matter? And they say, oh, you know, I failed a test, or somebody wasn't nice to me at school today. Well, let's get you a tutor because I'm terrible at math too, unless it has to do with fractions and cups in my kitchen. And, you know, let's invite that kid over for cookies. You solve problems before they become problems. You know, so I believe, and I really go out of my way to try to encourage the young people. When I meet a kid, man, I give out my business card like it's, hey, I've got a YouTube. And as soon as you tell me you've got a YouTube channel, they think you're cool. So I try, you know, I don't know how cool I actually am, but I try. So, but you know, it's really something important. So I'm going to tell you 2 quick little stories. I think we've got time. I went one time when this whole idea first started coming about, you know, because I'd been cooking, I'd been teaching, I took my first group of people to Italy, but all of a sudden, when I went to Italy that first trip with my first group, I started to remember, well, I'm from Roseto, and there's so much more meaning behind everything we do, you know, this whole Roseto effect. So all of a sudden, this back to the table movement idea came, and I met this woman who worked for a newspaper. She invited me to an event to meet some people, and it was at a retirement community, really nice one in Maryland. And so we get there, and as we're walking down the hall, this elderly, tall Black gentleman comes walking towards us, and she knows him, and she says, "Oh, hi," and she introduces me to Mr. Brown. And, you know, it was a nice, hi, nice to meet you. Okay. And we went our merry way. And then she turns to me and says, "You know, Mr. Brown has a cool story." And I was like, "Oh, really? What's that?" And she goes, "He was one of Martin Luther King's drivers." Now, let me tell you why that story is so important. Because all the way there, I was crying. I was beating myself up in the car saying, "Who do you think you are? You're just a mom," as I was saying before. "You think you want to save the world. You think you're going to reach this many people." And I was like literally floods. I was bawling all the way there. So I get there and I wipe my eyes and I go in and I meet Mr. Brown and hear her story about him. And I was like, I felt like someone had just tapped me on the shoulder from above saying, "This is why, you know, one person can make a difference."
Amen.
You know, that was why I met Mr. Brown. That's why I went to that event, because, you know, somebody above was telling me, yes, you can do it. So that day is just so important to me, because it really, to me, was a sign, because I had wondered for years what I was supposed to do. And I knew I was supposed to do something bigger than me. And my friend said, "Oh, you've got 6 kids, you've done big." And I'm like, yeah, but something outside of myself for the greater good, you know? And when this all came to pass, and that day specifically, I knew that feeling went away, that I was wondering what I was supposed to do, because I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Now you have cookbooks too, don't you? Don't you have cookbooks?
Yeah, but I'm working on it. So
You gotta get that
sure you guys are
going.
the first to know.
Oh,
But you know, there's a statistic. They say that the top 2 common denominators with school shooters. Now I'm going to get extreme here for a second, but it's
We have
valid.
about a minute left.
Okay, so the top 2 common denominators for school shooters are, one is mental illness and 2 is broken families. Well, mental illness isn't always chemical. Sometimes it's situational, and broken families can be fixed, I believe, a lot at the table. So we really need to get back to the table, because I think it would save a multitude of ills in our society. Everything from just our basic families and our connections to our families, to everything to the extreme of stopping a school shooter, you know, and everything in between. So I really hope to get this message nationwide. That's my dream.
I've got one burning question, Nadia, and I just want to know
Sure.
what skills the most important skill you learned about cooking from your Nona and your mother.
Not to be afraid to try something, and to not worry about exact measurements, because I think recipes scare people. Just throw it together and poof, see what happens.
And with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dorina, Barbara, Amalia, and Candy. We really needed an extra hour for this show. It would have helped a lot. Thanks, everyone. Thank you all for watching today. We'll see you next time on It's a Woman's World.